So welcome to the Dodger Game channel. You're watching a Mormon Truth video. This is going to be about magic and Mormonism. Joseph Smith, Brigham Young, and the magical history that has basically been really suppressed by the church for many years. Sometimes people hear some of these things from sources that are considered suspect or something like that. I've even seen videos on the internet. I saw one that was actually a really good factual video, but the title was, really lousy. It said like Mormons are satanic, and that's pretty ridiculous as far as your average church member goes. I'm not defending the Luciferian leaders at the top, but your average member of the church is certainly not thinking of that. They're just trying to have a happy family and make it a forever family. But I'm going to document some things here because that's the way to do things, is to document it. It's not a bunch of made up stuff or something, that somebody just came up with, some Ed Decker story or something, that he sold to the evangelical Christian community so they could be good anti-Mormon spiritual warriors or something. It's something that was actually accepted, in Joseph Smith's day. Brigham Young openly talked about using, magic charms and things like that. Brigham wore a bloodstone as a magical charm, basically, for protection. And that's pretty well documented. Was it his daughter? Well, look at some of these things. He got this. This was a historic one. It came from like Captain Cook, and it was even used to heal somebody. But right now we're looking at the Seer stone that is said to be the one that Joseph Smith supposedly put in his hat and pulled the Seer stone in the hat business, as far as many things actually. But translating the Book of Mormon is the kind of the famous one. And yeah, this is first presidency vault picture. The church finally let the cat was out of the bag, so now they're trying to look like, hey, we were transparent about it the whole time. Oh, sure, yeah, that's why nobody knew about it. Recently, they did in the early days. Joseph F. Smith said that Joseph Smith used this stone in his hat for basically channeling the Book of Mormon. He wasn't looking at old golden plates that weren't even in the room half the time, according to Emma or David Whitmer. So you may have heard these things, you may not. But let's get into some history here, and I'll just show some of the mass momentum that's documented here, including from Richard Bushman, Patriarch Bushman, who wrote Rough Stone Rolling about Joseph Smith. He was trying to write something that looked a little kinder and gentler towards Joseph Smith and his reputation than what Fawn Brody had written, niece of President David O. McKay, who got excommunicated and badmouthed, especially by BYU professor and apologist Hugh Nibley, who's the king of character assassination, and passed the baton on to Dan Peterson. Yeah, so let's get into this. So Joseph Smith started off about 13 years old, getting involved in magic, from what I have read. His neighbor girl was into using her seer stone, and these were really popular back then. Joseph Smith had more than one. This is the most famous one, but there was a clear one and so forth. And like I said, it's pretty well documented, so we're going to cruise through some of those things. Let me just do a little narrative now. So we borrowed this girl's seer stone. So they work like a crystal ball, basically, but you put them in a hat, and then they start glowing. Does that look like it glows? Doesn't look like it's glowing to me, but throw it in the hat, and I guess that's when the magic starts. If it's been set apart, dedicated, that sort of a thing. That reminds me of the fact that maybe I'll just throw that in here too. The practices of the occult, witchcraft, Freemasonry, high-level Freemasonry, which is proclaimed to be Luciferian by the leaders of, Freemasonry. Your most acclaimed leader ever, Albert Pike, who helped found the KKK, by the way, I believe, and the Palladian Rite of Freemasonry, which is pretty, well, said to be openly, satanic. Yeah, he said they need to harness the seething energies of Lucifer, at least if you're a master mason and or above, and yeah, pay attention to the pure light of Lucifer, the Luciferian doctrine. That's what Manly P. Hall also teaches. So they're both like 33rd degree Freemasons and occultists and that sort of a thing. So, Pike was like head of the Supreme Council for, southern jurisdiction of the United States. He was a Confederate general, if you don't know. And yeah, anyway, so witchcraft, Freemasonry, magic, they have language characteristics, just like, various various I don't know what I want to say, groups, religions, anyway, so keys. Joseph possessed certain keys by which he could discern things invisible to the natural eye, said his mother and said others. This is why these are words that were spoken, I believe, in connection with Josiah Stoll coming 150 miles from where he lived just to find Joseph Smith, because he was known to possess certain keys by which he could see things in the unseen world. So he keys, and the seer stone he used was a big part of this. A key. A seer stone is set apart or dedicated, like graves or people receiving priesthood callings in the church are set apart. These are magical terms. Degrees, the 3 degrees of glory in the celestial kingdom. That's Masonic. Everything has all degrees. You could be a 32nd degree Freemason, or maybe even make it to the 33rd. This is Scottish Rite, though, pretty much. And Joseph Smith was in the York Rite. Degrees, set apart, dedicated. The order of Melchizedek. You can make some of these things you'll find in the scriptures, but they're magic. The order of Melchizedek. That's Freemasonry. You read up on Royal Arch Freemasonry, and I've put some of that into one of the videos. There's a lot of terminology there that's awfully familiar within the Doctrine and Covenants, and sometimes within the Temple or Relief Society. Some of the language that's used. Maybe I'll just mention it as I go along here. Didn't make a list of magical or Freemasonic terms that are used within the church. So Joseph Smith got involved with the seer stone, and they were digging the well there at Willard Chase's house, and that's where this stone came from, apparently, if we got the right stone. And Joseph threw it in his hat, and it worked, and he borrowed it. Then Willard wanted it back because he liked using seer stones too, but Joseph wouldn't give it back. And there's a quote in there somewhere, said, "I don't care what the devil you have to say, you shall not have it back." So he had quite a reputation. There were interviews with his mother. We're going to go over that, where she said, "Hey, we weren't totally lazy and didn't devote all our time to the faculty of ABRAC and drawing magic circles and all that stuff. I mean, we never neglected one important thing for another. We did our farm work or whatever, but we attended to the spiritual needs for the soul." Magic is a spiritual need for the soul. Yeah. Okay, so he had a reputation. He was just a boy, got involved with this. And this gal's got a really nice website. Dila. Eve out of the garden. Yeah. Like, so we got some quotes there where Brigham Young is talking about, how Joseph Smith told the Quorum of the 12 that everybody should have a seer stone, but most of them are kept from it by wickedness. And many people use seer stones for wicked purposes. And I wanted to be kind of chronological there, but I think I'll just talk on inspiration from the things we come up with when I go through this stuff. And so Joseph Smith was still into the magic arts. Of course, we'll talk about the Jupiter talisman. That was a magic charm, basically, that he carried, which is related to his astrological alignment and was supposed to give him power and persuasion, protection, and especially with women. Fancy that. So anyway, Brigham said that Joseph said these things, and what we do know is that Joseph Smith received a lot of revelations. He said on his seer stone, some of the Doctrine and Covenants revelations came from the stone. And Hiram Page was a friend of Joseph Smith. The Page family were, friends with Joseph Smith, and there are various references. Hiram Page wound up having a seer stone, and he started receiving revelations. Evidently, other people in the church were starting to follow his revelations. So Joseph came up with a revelation that said, "Only I get revelations for the whole church on seer stones. You don't." Another good point was when Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery fled to Canada for about 5 weeks after the Kirtland Anti-Banking Safety Society, which was supposed to be a bank, but they couldn't get a charter, so they just changed the print there on what they're printing out to say something different than bank, Anti-Banking Safety Society. But it folded. A lot of sketchy stuff involved with the details that I'm not going to get into there, but they split the scene, as you might have said, in the 70s or late 60s. They hightailed it out of there, and when they came back 5 weeks later, Rigdon and Joseph, half the church was now following a girl, I believe she was 16 years old, who had a seer stone, was receiving revelation. So a seer stone's basically like a crystal ball, but they're a little smaller and not always clear like a crystal. You can't always find that. So anyway, I read about how you dedicate them or consecrate them. It's it's magic, and you got to be facing a certain direction and say certain magic spell words and all that kind of stuff. And pretty interesting. So half the church was following a girl with a seer stone, including the three witnesses. The three witnesses. They were all following this girl. So Joseph Smith's pretty charismatic. He got a lot of the people back in line following him after that. But the folks, his followers were feeling like this was a credible way to receive revelation, was on a seer stone. Three witnesses were so inspired that they were the ones who chose the Quorum of the 12. They selected the apostles. In case you don't know it, unlike the New Testament story where Jesus decides to get things started and he goes out and he picks 12 apostles, that's not how it happened with the church. When Joseph Smith formed the Church of Christ, he was ordained the first elder and Oliver Cowdery the second elder, and they kept it that way for a while. So it was first and second elder. So they just kind of expanded along the way. A few years later, I'm thinking it might have been as late as 1835 is when they did the 12 apostles, but I don't want to be quoted on that. Anyway, it wasn't at the beginning. So they got the 12 apostles, and that was something done by the three witnesses, meaning the three guys that said they sort of kind of saw an angel with their spiritual eyes. When Martin Harris was questioned by the printer, he said, "Did you really see it like with your natural eyes?" And he denied it. He said, No, I saw it with my spiritual eyes. May not be in a perfect quote there, but And I'm not looking for that one right now, but you can look it up. It's pretty much what they all said. And again, I guess we got like all those signatures for the other people on one generic thing, and I think Cowdery signed them all for the other 8 witnesses. So it wasn't exactly like, product testimonials where everybody's got their own thing to say and then signs it. It was like one generic thing written and Cowdery signed it. Plus that, they were basically from about 3 families, most of them. Whitmers, and then or related to Joseph Smith. Cowdery was just like a cousin. Not a first cousin, but he was a cousin. Okay, so anyway, Joseph Smith. So he gets involved, and he got pretty famous because he could find people's lost chickens or whatever. I don't know, with a seer stone. And then they went out and were doing the digging. This is just digging the well when he got it. But they were, digging for treasure, thinking like Captain Kidd or somebody buried treasure. And that's when we get into the necromancy. In other words, the treasures they were seeking at night, and these things where Joseph Smith was the seer. And he was kind of getting trained by another seer in the area for a while. And they had guardian spirits that they said, pirate ghost stuff. They were guarding the treasures. They'd hit something. They said, "Oh, it's the treasure chest." And then it would slip deeper into the earth. So they draw magic circles with magic knives, and then slit the throat of a sheep or a goat or something, or a dog, as long as it was black usually, and walking around the circle till it bled to death, and sacrifice it to the guardian demons. So that's pretty demonic, basically sounding. So the church wants to call this folk magic, maybe. Sounds like black magic to me. Black animals, and if you're the animal, it's a pretty unhappy situation. Okay, moving right along here. Oh, by the way, Joseph Fielding Smith authenticates this too. Not only the seer stone business, but other issues with this. Oh, was that some Joseph Fielding Smith stuff right there? Josiah Stoll. Let's get into that. Okay, so in 1826, now if you think about the first vision story, the popular one that he kind of made up at the many years later, it said God the Father was there, and that he was that he was only 14. It was 1820, which is not consistent with the other 3 to 8 versions, depending on if one's directly from Joseph Smith or somebody else relating it. They were never including God the Father, and he was always older, 15, 16, 17, whatever. Basically, 17 as far as all of his family said. William, his brother, who was an apostle in the church, has 4 different interviews recorded, which I've done on other videos on the first vision. All of them saying that Joseph Smith got started with religion in 1823. That's when the family started attending religious revival stuff, it says. Of course, and they joined the Presbyterian Church after Alvin died in 1823. But he died in about 19th of November. That sounds like a little late for revivals. That would have been when the weather's warmer. So maybe they joined Presbyterian Church in early 1824. I don't know. So what are we reading about here? Gift of seeing with a stone. Alright, it was a gift from God. Oh, that's according to Bushman. He's trying to twist this. Bushman basically tries to make it sound like God was preparing Joseph Smith to be like a seer, like a prophet and seer, holy guy, by practicing magic. Yeah. Doesn't really go along with what it says in Isaiah, wizards that peep and mutter, but that's what he said. He tried to just put the spin on it, I met with the 12. Yeah, okay, so then there they are, the 12. They're talking about his seer stone stuff and getting revelations. Of course, section 130 of the Doctrine and Covenants basically says that everybody will receive a white stone, that it will be a Urim and Thummim to them so they can get revelations about higher worlds, Section 130. Same kind of a theme. Of course, it's written in the Book of Mormon. There's spectacles in Ether chapter 3 prepared so that ancient languages could be translated. But in Alma, we're talking about a stone that glowed. Okay, here we go. Hey, search more, found Brigham Young, wore a stone around his neck. Okay, that's the Bloodstone from Captain Cook and all that stuff. There's loads of documentation on this. Captain Cook had this, and Brigham got it. Had miraculous powers. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So Joseph was not digging. He was not the digger. Josiah Stoll came 150 miles, found him, fired his former seer, scryer, whatever, crystal gazer, hired Joseph Smith, and they never got any treasure on his property. So pretty soon his nephews got upset and took Joseph Smith to court. 1826. This is what all the Christians say. Joseph Smith was a convicted con man. Well, what did they charge him, like 23 cents or something for court costs? I don't know. But he didn't get in a whole lot of trouble. But Josiah Stoll defended him. He said, he was doing a great job with the searstone. We hit the treasure box once or twice, but it slipped deeper into the earth because of the demons. Joseph Smith wore a talisman, Jupiter talisman. He was wearing it when he got shot. Apparently it didn't work well enough. He needed temple garments. He needed magic underwear, but he didn't have it, I guess. I don't know. Reed Durham apparently found the... Reed Durham. So he was a church historian, and he talked about the talisman, like a dialogue, Journal of Mormon Thought or Sunstone or something, and that Mormon Historical Society. He said a little bit too much. He thought it was masonry or something, but it's all about magic, which isn't masonry. Maybe he was just a little ignorant. Pissed off Spencer Kimball, and he made him, put a statement, saying that he believed the church was true anyway or something. Yeah, there it was. Reed Durham, Spencer Kimball. Spencer was not happy. I think I heard he was a Freemason, but can't prove it. Okay. Ooh, are we going to talk about the treasure cave in Cumorah here that Oliver Cowdery and Brigham Young talked about? Oh, in the cave. Yeah, so they said they had like golden plates piled up to the roof and stuff. Yeah, these are actually documented stuff. As far as, not that the cave's documented, but these stories, you find them in people that are supposedly credible, in church history, talking about them. The magic cave in Cumorah. All kinds of golden plates in it. Amazing. If I could just get this to stay here. Okay. Why am I having trouble with this? Oh well. I'm not going to worry about that. On to the next thing. Alright, so they took him to court. How about when Joseph Smith gets kicked out of the Methodist Church in 1828? Never heard of that one? He wasn't baptized into the church, but he tried to join their Sunday school. Of course, we all know that later on we had that story that said the now popular God the Father and Jesus version of the first vision, with him being 14, says that the Lord told him to go not after them. They're all corrupt. There's Methodists, Baptists, Presbyterians, and everybody else. So immediately Joseph's hanging out with a Methodist minister and tells him this stuff, and then they all persecute him. Of course, that doesn't go along with the story of his family seeking comfort by going to religious services in 1823 after Alvin died, because all these people would have been persecuting Joseph and hating him, so that wouldn't have been very comforting, I don't think. But he didn't pay attention to those things when he made that story up. Neither did he, plus he said it all happened in 1820 in there, that they joined the Presbyterian Church in 1820. It's pretty well established, even by his mom and brothers, that happened in 1823-ish, or just after then. So, what do you got here? More about digging. So he gets kicked out. He joins their Sunday school, and these people, I think they were even relatives of Emma's side, I think, kicked him out, said they didn't want a necromancer disgracing their church. So he couldn't even hang out with their Sunday school. Maybe he's trying to practice being a preacher, I don't know. Alright, the Knight family. Newell K. Knight, Joseph Knight. These guys were Joseph Smith's friends. This isn't like slander made up by Christians or something. Okay, directly away, neither to lay it down. Oh, this is the instructions about when he's supposed to get the plates from the spirit that was guiding him, which later in the story becomes Moroni later. I think like after Joseph Smith was dead. He did make references to a guardian spirit, and his name was Nephi, not Moroni. Anyway, Joseph Knight talks about it. So he had all these little stipulations. Well, if you go to the hill, and if you remember the story, I've told it before. I mean, like Moroni supposedly comes to him. That's why we get it now. Tells him his sins are forgiven, but then the next day when he goes to the hill, he tells him, no, you haven't kept the commandments, so you can't have them. Just keep coming back every year. But if you read other accounts, he's talking about, okay, well, it says, okay, you have to bring Alvin. Well, sorry, Alvin's dead. So you got to bring Emma, but you got to be dressed in black, and she's got to be dressed in black and have a black horse and a black carriage and blah blah, all kinds of magic stuff. At midnight on the equinox, kinds of witchcraft stuff, Yeah, so like September 22nd or something. When did he practice? I bet he published the Book of Mormon like the spring equinox, late March. So these are his friends. It's not like somebody weird made these up. And these friends talk about, their family. There's the Jupiter talisman, magic talismans he used. Right there. Magic Jupiter talisman. So when you see this, sometimes these Christians put that on there. And yeah, they didn't make it up, actually. Emma Smith sold that to the church, I guess. All right, here's Bushman talking about Joseph Smith's reputation again. And, necromancy. He had the reputation going on. He was a magician. Brigham Young was into it as far as the, using the bloodstones and stuff. There's some magic parchment. So, like I said, Bushman's totally, he's a patriarch, okay? He tries to make it sound good, but Joseph Smith was a magician. End of story. Everything faded to black. Salt Lake Temple, if you look closely at the spires, each one of those 6 big columns there. We don't want to call columns or spires. They've all got 13 spires on them. 13. And you see the inverted pentagrams and stuff on the Nauvoo Temple and the all-seeing eye. And they always try to come up with these excuses, but sorry, people. There's so much occult stuff in the architecture, you just don't know what you're looking for. Yeah, here's the nice fake pictures they give us with Joseph with his magic glasses on looking. He didn't use magic glasses. This is what they say he did, not that. I'm not looking at it like that, but he had this face in the hat. See, that's totally fake. No wonder it's a cartoon. Well, not like they had cameras anyway. So, tons of documented stuff. You can do your own reading. That was a great site there. Eve Out of the Garden. Lots of documented stuff there. Reed Durham, totally, high reputation of Mormon researcher, historian. It's just the church decided to cover this stuff up, so they put the, brown rock, in the first presidency vault. And now it's coming out because there's so much out. Basically, South Park is the church's biggest problem on that level, because they put so many people saw that the church has to basically come out and go, okay, yeah, we got the rock. I'm sure we probably published something about it once. Yeah. So years and years after he would have supposedly seen God the Father, after he came up with that story, he's practicing magic. Yeah. And trying to join the Methodist Church. I mean, none of these things add up to his story. Why is he trying to join the Methodist Church? Why was he talking to a Methodist preacher about his vision? Why is he practicing magic and gets prosecuted for it 6 years after he would have seen God the Father and known he shouldn't be a magician? Why was he telling Book of Mormon stories before he ever had the plates? Read his history by Lucy Mack's mom. She's talking about his wild imagination and telling about, the Nephites, the Lamanites, or whatever. May not have used those words, but the American Indians. I mean, it gets pretty entertaining sometimes. Early Mormonism and the Magic Worldview by D. Michael Quinn. Probably got a lot of good info. Dan Vogel. He's a pretty good researcher, I think. Well, it's for real, people. Your prophet was a magician. Abracadabra. The faculty of Abrac. That's where that comes from. His own mama said so. His daddy used a divining rod, as did Oliver Cowdery. Scryer, Seer, crystal gazer. It's like crystal ball. It's magic. And if they call it folk magic, it sounds better than black magic, doesn't it? And you're sacrificing animals, that's pretty bad. It's almost as bad as being Jewish. They massacred even more animals. At least they did.